Man, we've had 2 good days, really, weather-wise, workout-wise. Just with the tempo of the drills, it's always difficult when you bring in a collective, this large. A lot of these players are trying out for 3 days. And then there's a number of players that we've signed as free agents. So overall, I've been pleased with the 2 practices. The evening, we just have a walkthrough. So it's good to see him moving around and trying to do what we're coaching. Any questions?
Sean, you have young guys. Obviously, you know some things. You're projecting a lot. With a guy like RJ, for example, how quickly do you want to sort of stress test what you think he can do, and how much of this is just actually just learning?
I still think there's a baseline, and so I would say, man, we really start with the fundamentals, and the growth comes, and the growth comes, you feel it. Sometimes it comes faster than you expect, sometimes maybe slower. But he's someone that, look, he's picked up on very quickly what we're doing. You can tell it's real important to him. But this is like, the first exposure to the training room, the weight room, the schedule, the nutrition, the practice. There's a lot more than just, hey, we're going to run these plays, So he's looked good, though. I mean, he's listen, we're glad he's here. And each day there's a little bit of an installation where that we add a little bit more to it.
What more do you learn about Barron now seeing him on the field for 2 days?
Well, the same things, again, we're putting in some base coverages. I would say exactly what we saw on tape, smart, savvy. If you're watching closely, some people transition and stop very quickly. He's got really quick twitch. I'd say he's sticky in coverage. But I think, he's one of those players that already at a young age understands splits. I worry sometimes with the corners that defend. If you're defending every route, you're defending no route. And he's real savvy as to a tight split. He eliminates 80% of what could be run. And so, man, you feel a veteran player.
How easy or difficult is it for guys, whether it's players you drafted, signed, or tryout players, to separate themselves during these couple of days?
It's a process. So I think sometimes we show them that, and I give them the same message each year. Hey, once you arrive, that's the part of us procuring the talent. But once you're here, how you arrived here isn't important to us. You're here, and then, man, if the player is working out, participating, then I mean, we will watch this tape and talk about each player. What's it look like? And that's from the last trial player we signed to the first-round draft pick. And so I've said this to you guys before, man, we never want someone that was here and hear about him later there, and so that's important that we do a good job looking closely at him.
Harvey caught a lot of passes today. Is that something, he didn't do that a lot in college? Is that something you want to kind of?
Well, it was today's install. We put in, really one route that, we didn't have it yesterday. We had choice routes in. I think when you look at a lot of college offenses, I don't know how often the running back is built into the passing game. I think they are to some degree, but I think maybe a little bit more so at the NFL level. Today we had 2 or 3 schemes that went in that certainly, but they were, and you try to get, like if we've got one of those plays in the script, then, we try to make sure he's getting that rep. So there's a lot of thought given to the play and who's in on that play. But that was the second install, and it was good to see.
Sean, Harvey only threw the ball 4 times at UCF.
Excuse me?
Harvey only threw the ball 4
Yeah.
times, but was obviously a prolific high school passer, and Virginia brought him to be. Is that a potential? And we may not see it, but is that something
that wasn't my vision.
But don't visions change, perhaps?
Yeah. Listen, I'm. You can sell me on anything. right? But I'm focusing on the runner right now, and I like that he was a former quarterback.
Sean, when you're getting first looks at guys now, for rookies, how long does it take to get a first impression, or are they one and the same?
I think it begins yesterday and in the cafeteria, and when you talk to them and in meetings, and then back out at practice again. And I think it's ongoing. So many of these players, a lot of these players we've met and interviewed, and so you do feel like you're back again. So you've kind of had that initial first impression, and now you're getting, and it changes in August or July when we put pads on, because you guys know it, they all look a little different in pads, and you can't really predict how they're going to look in pads. So those different moments happen over time.
Saw you chatting with Joaquin Davis during practice today. What's your vision for him as you get a look at him right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, the special teams. I just went through this whole thing about, the kicking game, and then, all of them. They just have a handful of snaps right now, and so it's getting them up to speed with that, and then kind of going from there. But we're moving guys around. We're not just isolating them at one spot.
Historically, you guys, your organizations have always really emphasized the value of the undrafted, free agent 15.
Sure,
year.
sure.
When did you kind of learn or key in on that was an important part of roster building to you?
I think the first time it was a significant subject in 2007, we had drafted a running back, I think in the 4th round out of Ohio State, and we had signed a free agent, Pierre Thomas, out of Illinois. And we got to training camp, and it was a period of time where Pierre was playing better. And look, I think there's two ways to. He was playing better enough where the players and most people knew, and so we released the 4th round pick and kept Pierre, and I think your locker room knows that, and. That's just one example, but then 3 years later in the NFC Championship game, Pierre also was a kick returner. It goes into overtime against the Vikings, and he brings one out to the 40, and on 4th and 1, he converts, and we win that game, go on to go to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl, and I'm like, man, the significance of something that appeared to be a small decision 2 years prior was very important. And so Bill was big on that, go by what we see, and then in that moments after the draft, we have all that data to feed them, like, hey, you're going to get we're going to meet here in 5 minutes and talk about the tryout players versus the guys here. And there's a couple that we want to discuss that I think have a chance to go into camp with us.
Coach, along those lines, throughout your tenure going back to New Orleans, and then obviously last year too, you're not afraid to play rookies, and you play some of the highest percentage of rookies in the NFL. Why is that important to you, and why is that?
I think it a lot of times depends on your team. Certainly last year's team was going to, there were those opportunities. It's not intentional, or it's not that, it's not something, it's what's been earned, if you will. And we can't be afraid to develop and understand there's going to be mistakes. You with me? There's times where the veteran coach sometimes is comfortable with the player that knows what to do. Now, he might not be doing it very well, but developing these players and playing them, it's a young man's game. And so that's the fun part of it.
It's all about trust when it comes to pass protection and running backs. So at what point will you be able to know that you trust Harvey and pass pro? Does it take all the...
Yeah, well, when you think about this, and look, Sproles, Kamara, there's a lot of different backs we've had that we can create different protections to make sure that the matchup's right. We'll have a handful of different, because I know the question, is he a 3-down back? Well, he's going to play on 3rd down. And then but he could play on third down where the tight end is in protection. So there's a lot we can do relative to really suit his strengths. And it would happen occasionally with Darren where, I'd say to him, hey, every once in a while you might get matched up on Navarro Bowman or Willis. And I'm not going to make a habit of doing that. But if you watch his stature, and he's put together pretty well. So there's a difference between a small runner and a short runner. We're not interested in the small runners, but we're okay with the short runners.
During training camp last year, you talked about it being rewarding when a team that doesn't have these external expectations goes on and does something, makes the playoffs, something like that. When those expectations do arrive, whether it's for the rookies or the team as a whole, does it take an adjustment in mentality or mindset?
No, we embrace them. This is listen, and the schedule comes out here in a few days. There'll be a few more TV games. It's part of the deal, and you get comfortable in doing it, and it's a lot better than the alternative. That's what you want, and it's one of the things that's attractive about coaching or playing here, is the history, and I think if you're a competitor, that drives you.
How early do you talk to this group, the rookie class, about what those expectations are?
Well, look, there's going to be this transition when, right now they're separate, they're behind. That'll come in the kind of on-ramping phases.
You just mentioned the schedule. Have you heard anything about you guys playing an international game?
No, look, there's been whispers. It comes out next week, I think, the schedule. We'll figure it out. You'll know when I know. Over the years, you just kind of pretty soon, it comes, I look at two things. Where's the travel? And then when's the buy? And then, all right, laminate it and I'll put it up. And then we'll just play them when we play them.
Sean, you guys bring in Clay Webb, UDFA's got that lawsuit dating back to high school. What did you guys see?
Yeah, he's been cleared. This kid's a great kid. And so we spent a ton of time with him. He's the best. Obviously made a mistake, and he was fantastic just in discussing it with us and going through it with us. But we feel real good about where he's at.
With Caleb Lohner, obviously you brought him in, he's got good size. So one thing you mentioned at his pro day, he moved well. How has that kind of transitioned into getting a little bit more personal look at it?
Well, look, it's limited. So this is a basketball player for most of his career. He plays a year of football, count the snaps, count the catches. I get it. And yet you see traits, you see movements. I'm not a big fan of the Big 12 Pro Day because a player like him gets 6 routes instead of 20 that he would get at his own Pro Day. So hopefully that's going away. But there's 2 or 3 clips where I'm like, play it again. And then when you watch him, and you watch him move, and even in our first 2 days here, and people bring up Jimmy, and now Jimmy was a 3rd-round pick, I get it, but there were some similarities in that he only played a year, 80-some snaps. I think he had 18 catches. And so, yeah, we got to coach and develop. In other words, if it was already present when you watch him and you guys see him and shake his hand and stand next to him, like, holy cow. And so there's traits there that excite me. And then just visiting with him and, his intentionality and his excitement about it, man, I'm excited to watch it.
Getting Ian some reps out here, what did you see about him compared with when you had him the last time in New Orleans?
Well, the last time we had a tough experience. We had, I think it was during the COVID season, and it was a Monday night game against Miami. We had 22 players down, and there was a point where there was going to be these, like, all right, these games won't be played, and then pretty soon they said, we're playing them all. And so he was a rookie. It was a tough, I can't even tell you who was blocking for him. But it's good to have him back. Obviously, Desmond had decided, I think he's possibly thinking about what he wants to do with his career. Nonetheless, it always helps to have a veteran in these type of camps because they get you in and out of the huddle quicker. And so it's been a while since I've seen him.
Sean, there was some reporting about Dre Greenlaw and an injury. Is there anything you're willing?
Yeah, no, look, he's on schedule, and I saw the early reports, and you don't know how tempted I get sometimes, but I had showed great restraint. He's doing well, and will be a full participant in training camp. All of that's doing great, but I refrain. All right, one more question.
Sean, I don't know if you saw, you probably saw Rams are doing their mini camp in Maui.
Maui, yeah.
Thoughts about international travel for mini camp or training camp, especially with.
We're going to try to get this building over here built. If you want to ask Greg that question, you can, but I think, we have it here. We have it here. And so, no, I like our setup and our routine. I like the fields, the facilities, the meeting space. And in 1 year, give or take, in May, we'll be moving over there. And so I don't want to move to, how much does it cost? $175 million facility, and then asked to go to Maui to practice. Thank you.